Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at Pandamonium Publishing House on Facebook Live. We are talking to author Tim Ford tonight, live in conversation with him about his seventh book, Freedom, in the Mitch Strongbow series. November the 7th, 7 p.m., book 7. That's got to mean something, right?
A lot of
And
sevens.
yeah, 7 is a lucky number, but you
Yes.
can view this video later as we post it to our different feeds and our YouTube channel and our blog at pandemoniumpublishing.com. So thanks for joining me tonight, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, last year didn't work because of other reasons, but you know what? As long as I keep writing books, guaranteed this is going to happen again.
Absolutely, for sure it is. So we're here to talk about your seventh book. I'm so excited about this in the Mitch Strongbow series. And what started this entire journey? How did you start writing with book one, and why did you start writing all of a sudden?
So I was working night shifts over Christmas holidays. When you leave your family, it is freaking depressing. Everybody's still having feasts, you're having drinks, and you're dragging your ass into work. And it was the first of 3 night shifts. I felt very, very alone. I worked by myself. And I've always had this character in my head. And so I started typing away, just Mitch asking Natasha out for a New Year's Eve party. And the one scheduler came downstairs and he goes, "Every time I come down, you're like a chicken pecking away at the keyboards. What exactly are you doing?" I said, "I sort of have this kind of idea for a story." It was a very short story. Look at me now. And he goes, "Send me some." So I sent him some. And Tom Barth was his name. God bless his soul. He has since passed. He goes, "This is really good. You have any more?" So I sent him some more. And then I just went with it. I just did the whole background behind it and started thinking, you know what, I could definitely see this being more than just a 100-page story.
Definitely. And we're glad that you did that too. So, when you talk about just having this idea, do you let your characters tell the story, or do you know where they're going to go? Do you decide in your head before you start writing, okay, I've got an idea of where I'm going to send this character? Because a lot of authors say, you know what, the characters tell me the story. I'm just the vehicle that tells it, puts it on the page, sort of thing. What's the case for you?
Identical, like you said. I put everything on paper. I sort of have a plot line as to what I'm going to follow. But once they start banging away at the keyboards, it just takes a life of its own, and I just go with it.
Okay. So with your writing process, what do you kind of use to inspire your work? I know that you love music, and talk about your kind of writing routine and when you write and how you get inspired.
Yeah, definitely. Music is my favorite drug. I can't write anything without any music playing. I have different playlists set up on my computer here for different scenes. If I'm doing a violent scene, I'll start off with some Black Sabbath or some Judas Priest. If I'm writing a sexual scene, I'll get into a lot of the ambient music. If I'm writing long scenes, I'll get into Fish, the world's greatest rock band, and or the Allman Brothers. And it just inspires me. It gets me into such a trance. It's just a perfect springboard. So when I'm writing a scene, I picture, if I'm sitting in the movie theater, what would be the perfect song for that scene, that specific scene, and it feeds off me. I have sat in movie theaters and gotten goosebumps from soundtracks that are just like spot on. Quentin Tarantino, I believe, in my opinion, does it the best. Hans Zimmer is amazing, but Quentin Tarantino, kind of off the wall, kind of like yours truly here, it just inspires me.
So, how much okay, I'm going to switch my questions around. I had them in sort of an order,
Sure.
but I'm going to actually ask this. A lot of authors go on these literary pilgrimages and they go to these places and they're inspired. Like, they go to New York and they've taken the setting there and they kind of view all of these things, and then that seeps into their work. Do you do this with concerts?
Yes, I've had stuff come to me at concerts, when I'm traveling, when I'm flying for whatever reason. I can get really deep in thought when I'm up in the plane, and also when I'm on a cruise ship. There's just
Okay.
something magical and mystical about the water. I had one scene come to me in book. Let me just see here. In In book 6, Inside Looking Up, I won't give away the spoiler, of course, but there's a scene where Mitch runs into two of his adversaries, shall we say. That scene came to me when I was hooked up to an IV in a gurney on my way to my third kidney stone surgery.
Oh, wow.
And it
That's
was so,
incredible.
like, I was so focused. And my surgeon also follows my series. And I was explaining it to him until he knocked me out with the drug. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But it was just yeah. So you never know when you're going to be inspired. And there's some people walking down the street, you go, they would make a great character. Like, there's just something about them. I believe that fully. When people are around, there's different auras around people, and you can feed off them.
So that being said, how much of your own life is reflected in the Mitch Strongbow series?
Book 1 a lot.
Book
Book
one a
1
lot. Okay.
absolutely was me. My hounds were off or getting high. We're teenagers just finding ourselves.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to be that controlled a child, or at least not me, anyways. And everybody I hung around with at the time, we were all the same.
So your main character, Mitch Strongbow, is obviously the hero in this entire series, but he's also the villain. And
Yes,
when you were writing him, did you really struggle with his morality? Did you decide that, you know what, okay, he's going to have some kind of redemption, or he's going to be a lot more than just on the surface? Because when I started reading book 7, Freedom, I really felt like he had made this kind of turning point in his life, that something happened, and I'm not going to spoil it, but all of these things kind of came into play and made him who he is. That being said, do we see the character arc come all the way around?
negative. He
Okay.
will be battling demons for the rest of his life, mostly because of book 2.
Okay.
Book 2 is really his Jericho. He hit the wall. He definitely hit the wall. He was never the same. And ever since then, it's been just one battle after another. And just when you think you're on that surfboard and you're just riding it to shore, along comes a freaking shark. Along comes that jaws. Sometimes you hear the noise, sometimes you don't hear the noise, and next thing you know, he's screaming.
Do you know what? That's what I love about your series. It's so unpredictable and it's so well thought out, and all of the ends are tied up with a bow. And I just feel that you are a natural born storyteller. What do you think your readers, you have a big fan base. Why do you think people like your book so much? What is
I
it
think
for them?
his I think because I never took a writing course in my life, and I write as if you and I are having a conversation. I always compare Mitch sitting in the bar, having a beer, doing a shot at Jack, and telling his story. Just a down to earth story, even though some of it's very dark. Yeah, 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 definitely.
And I think the other thing is too, is that you've made him really relatable. Maybe not everyone has lived the life that he has with all of the challenges that he's faced, but I also feel like your writing style sits the reader right beside that main character, and you experience everything that he does. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, that's the mark of a great writer. You really
Thank
get
you.
people invested in your characters. And
Thank you.
how did you do that with Mitch? Like, what inspired Mitch? Why him? Why this kid in kind of the 70s? Why did you choose to make him half German, half Sioux? And how much research did you do? I know that was like 15 questions in one, but if
It's
you
a
could
good thing my
just
coffee's still kicking in. I am
if
Pandamonium.
you could just extrapolate all that
Okay,
information for us.
so part of the reason why he is half Sioux, half German, I have nothing but respect for the Sioux. I have nothing but respect for the Germans, and it also ties into his mother and his father, and also Natasha, the first love of his life, who was also Jewish. So you had to throw that sort of like the Sharks and the Jets, going back to the West Side Story, into it. There always has to be some sort of good and evil in every relationship, and it also. Mitch's grandfather is the shaman, and the shaman is the most holy man on the Indian reservation, Pine Ridge Reservation in Shannon County, South Dakota. And Mitch also gets a lot of the same spiritual vibes, visions that his grandfather had.
Have you ever had any of those yourself?
Sober, yes, on LSD many times.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because you know what, there's actually a lot of research going into that and the effects of these different drugs opening up the brainwaves and
Yeah.
creativity, right? So it's one of those things where I think that we leave pieces of ourselves throughout our work. Would you agree?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I also believe in your gut instinct. You know that when you go into a restaurant or walking down the street that something bad has happened, you should always listen to your gut instinct. It's survival.
Definitely. And how much of this series for Mitch is about survival?
I would say all of it. I'd say, you know what, he may be one of the toughest guys on the streets, but there's always something coming at him, whether or not it's by force or it's with his brain or with his heart. It's
Hmm.
hard when you write a character who is a narcissist, but still has a heart, who still has good values. If even though Mitch is a badass, if he saw someone raping a woman, he'd put a bullet in the guy's head. And
Right,
we all
right,
want someone like that. Because unfortunately nowadays there's a lot of things police can't do because they're handcuffed. Well,
right.
Mitch is the man.
Right. And when you talk about prison and that kind of theme throughout the books, how much research did you do? And did you call in any experts to help you?
Negative. Once again, just vibes.
Okay.
Absolute vibes.
Because when I
Um,
was reading the book 6, which is Inside Looking Out, it was like I was there behind
mhm.
bars, experiencing the riots, all of that kind of thing. And where did you kind of get this information? You just thought, okay, this is something that would naturally happen because it's very, very believable for being fiction. And that's why I want to ask about the research and the time that went into kind of
Yeah.
that particular building of that setting.
I think for something like book 6, I probably spent more time doing research, especially on San Quentin itself, than I did writing. You could have your plot line, but you have to make sure that if I put Mitch in this certain area of the prison, that's a real part of the prison. I don't
Right.
want my readers to also go, like, how come he's in San Quentin? Meanwhile, it's in Florida. You
Yeah.
have to be spot on.
Yeah, and credibility is huge because
Yes.
once you lose credibility with your readers, they're never going to read another thing that you write again, right?
Yes. Yes.
And how you have so many supporting characters in your novels. How do you keep them straight from, one author to all the authors watching? How do you keep them in line in your mind so that you're not mixing up who goes where and what happens to them? Do you have a method for that?
Yes, a lot of notes, a lot of copy and paste. I will write stuff about different characters, even his first gang that he's in, the Dirty Dozens. I would write out exactly which character is, who they look like, also. So then I always have that mental image as to exactly who they are.
Hmm. Now, that being said, we often read books and then we go to movies and we're really disappointed because we don't feel like the right character was cast by the
Yes,
way that we have that description in our mind. So, your
yes.
ideal person for Mitch Strongbow would be who if it was a movie?
Unfortunately, he has passed, but I would say Kerry Von Erich, who was a wrestler, who was
Okay.
half German, and he looked actually also native. Um, the he would have to be obviously a big guy, long hair, but with the blue eyes. I mean, they're very important. Even though he is native, he's also half German. So I had to have that blue eyes to have him a little bit different looking. There's that the guy who played Aquaman, I think is his. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know, one of the. Yeah, you know, the one that chicks are always going all crazy over with the tattoos that was on Game of Thrones.
You mean
That guy.
Jason Momoa? Never heard of him.
Yes, I get mistaken for him all the time, but yes, him. Yes, yes, exactly him.
So, um, Tim, you're always so great to interview because you're just so fun to talk to and you're such a down to earth, normal guy. Now, with writing Mitch Strongbow specifically, you make him this hero and he's somebody who you've said previously, he's going to do the thing that needs to be done, whether or not people want that to be done. Right. So there's a
Yes.
woman, something's happened to her. He steps in, makes a difference. Do you think that you being a dad to daughters swayed that?
Absolutely, 110%. My values have changed since I became a father, especially I didn't have sisters. So females for me when I was younger, I treated differently um, than being a father. I know what to look for. And yeah, your heart opens up more being a father to daughters, I believe. I never had sons, so I can't speak on that part. But I also have a special bond with my grandson. So it's also good too.
So that gives you kind of an insight into who this character needs to be in order to continue through the series, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
do you find that you've kind of figured out the ending for Mitch Strongbow? Is there an end?
Oh hell no.
Your
I
readers are
have
going to be happy about that.
yes,
So is your
I have
publisher.
yes. It was good for all of us in the long run. You know what? You could do the storybook Hollywood ending, but that wouldn't be real. That would be
I don't
selling
like it.
out.
No,
No,
I agree with that. And it's so predictable. That's the thing. Continue. Go ahead.
yeah. So I don't ever want to do that. I have several. Um, One I lean towards, but you know what? Once I get there, I'll know exactly which one it is. I
Yeah,
won't know until I get there. How everything
absolutely.
plays out. I actually started writing the final book, just different parts of it. And right now, the final book will be called Full Circle.
Okay.
And so I started doing notes how I think it should be played out. And there's a couple scenes that I like. So when I write, if I can visualize it, I can write it. If I can't visualize that scene, I can't write it. And I see this one scene so clear, so clear. It's just goosebumps.
So that all kind of packages together in terms of tying everything up with a bow. And I mean, that's what we really want as publishers, for there to be no loose ends, for there to be an answer kind of for everything. And I think that you do that really well. But you also are such a visual writer that you kind of paint a picture with these words and settings. Like I said, you make us feel like we're sitting right beside the main character. How hard is it when you have a character with so much going on to kind of write that setting in such a way that it doesn't fall by the wayside, that it's still kind of, important, and where he's going is essential to the plot? But does the setting ever get lost for you because you're so focused on the characters?
If a sentence get lost and I'm coming at it from either the wrong angle or it's the wrong scene,
Okay.
sometimes it does get lost, and then I will write it out. And I've been at the gym where scenes have come to me where I've had that little bit of a block, and it's come to me at the gym. I come racing home and I'm shaking writing it out because it's so clear once again.
So what do you use? Are you a pen and paper type of guy?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes,
Th-
as
th-
Kathy will attest to you, I keep ground in toy in business.
I don't think they're called that anymore, are they? Are they staples?
Um, no idea.
There
No
you go.
idea.
So you got the notebook there. How
Hilroy.
how often do you sit down to write? Is it a daily practice for you? Is it based on inspiration? How does that work?
So this may sound really silly, but my writing has sort of struggled a little bit since I retired. So when I worked 12-hour night shifts, I became alive from say 9 p.m. until 4 in the morning. I had that manic high, that REM. It just kept me going and going and going. Just something about when the sun goes down. So I would do all my research during the daytime, and then I would write at nighttime. I put on my music, and I would just go with it.
So,
Now I'm normally in bed around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, but I can't write. If you were to say to me, Tim, I need you to write 500 words by the next morning, I can't do it. I have to get that high, that euphoric buzz, shall we say, for writing.
well, and that's a really good point, because I feel like you do have to be in a particular mindset in order to write the scenes that you do. But also, how has kind of the darkness in the world affected your writing and your plots and with your characters?
I don't like talking about COVID because it's so controversial, but when it first started, I had to actually stop writing. because
Mhm.
I can go down a really dark rabbit hole
Mhm.
beforehand and I come up and the world is safe. And then
Right.
when that happened, it's like as if there was so much darkness surrounded by me. It was hard, but I'm definitely getting back into it.
Mhm.
In fact, right now I'm going through book 11 that was written, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm making the appropriate changes. And it's kind of nice as it gives me a chance to add stuff in or
Yeah.
change things around with it.
So, with your writing from book one to book seven now, which is available at pandemoniumpublishing.com/shop, Freedom by Tim Ford, what, how do you think you've grown as a writer? Do you see the difference in your writing? Do you see the difference in
Huge
your
difference.
ideas?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah,
how
yeah, huge
so?
difference. I've learned how to use cliffhangers.
Okay.
Cliffhangers, so what I've done is I try to add 3 or 4 cliffhangers at the end of every book. I realize now how important it is. Book one, there was no real cliffhangers. It was just telling the whole stories. But now I realize what I'm doing, how to get into it, how to write a little bit deeper, how not to drive your poor editor too crazy. Now that I've learned to write a little bit, um, and I still really enjoy writing.
Good.
It's
Good.
just that great escape from the madness around me. And I think that once you're retired, I have the gym and I have my writing to keep my brain sharp. And
How
that's huge. I think, go ahead.
how important is physical outlets for you in terms of your writing?
For me, it's very important. I've always been very alpha. I've been a gym rat since I was 14. No matter if I have an injury, I'm there. Okay, so it's going to take me this long to recover, and then I'll be back at the gym. And it gives me clarity. It gives me absolute clarity. Gets rid of stress. I also have a joint disease called ankylosing spondylitis, and my dad had it. He went into a wheelchair in his 50s. He fell into a bottle of oxys, and unfortunately, it destroyed him mentally and physically. I never want to be like that. I want to keep going and going and going. You know, brow walk, just lifting weights and just keeping myself going. I want to be like Mitch. I want to be ready for that battle. I'm there to fight.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important, and to just kind of embody some of the traits that your character does have. Because do you think that this is a true statement? Not only do we leave a piece of ourselves behind everything that we write or create as artists, but do you feel like we kind of become the characters, or do they become us?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I've caught myself sometimes saying, "What would Mitch do? We should get bumper stickers. Not what would Jesus do, but what would Mitch Strongbow do?"
Okay, I'm gonna write that down for our
Yes,
promotional team.
50-50
We're on
patent,
it.
right? Yes.
So, with all of these books, which one has been your favorite so far? That's a
That
hard
is
question.
so hard. It's a hard question because each one has a different moral compass, a different story to tell.
So, which one do you relate
Um,
to most then?
I would say one because that was my teen years,
Okay.
and there's nothing better than teen years. Like I said, you're finding yourself, just who you want to be in life,
Mhm.
and when you're a teenager, your pack of friends is more important to you than your own family life.
Absolutely. So,
Mm.
with Mitch being this kind of alpha male and, being the tough guy and having all of these attributes, it's pretty easy for you to write from that perspective because you're a man, right? And
Yes.
with writing women, how is that a challenge for you? Because you do have female characters. To get a woman's perspective, do you have somebody come in and say, this is what I think you should add or take away, or this sounds believable, but this doesn't? Where does that female voice come from?
I think just from just the different females that have been in my life,
Okay.
um, most of the females in Mitchell's life are very strong females too. There's not too many. I hate to use a thing, but like Susie Housewife, just sitting at home. They're also very strong females too. There's a character that will be coming into When Irish Eyes Aren't Smiling, who's tough as nails, and she's almost like a female version of Miss Strongbow. And that book's already been written, but that's in the future. My one friend Deanna Duquette said, "Make me a character." I've read everything you have written because back then it was just on a laptop,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I made her a character because I really didn't want to, because I didn't want to write for her. I never want to write for a person. I write for the series. And so I went with it, and that character is huge, absolutely huge. That character will play a vital role in the ending of the series.
So, can we talk about Mitch's relationship with his sister, with Rachel?
Yes, yes,
It's really interesting to me how you wrote her, being on the right side of law and
yes,
him being so kind of far gone from that. And
yes.
with your siblings, did you find a lot of that as well? Like you were opposites or were you the same? And how much of that came into play when you were writing his sister? Was it writing a character that you kind of wanted as a sister, or how did that work?
I sort of wrote Rachel as if she would follow in his mother's footsteps, who was a teacher, very smart lady, and Mitch was more like his father, the full-blooded Lakota Sioux. I am a warrior, don't you tell me. But Rachel also has that Lakota side in her too, that she will not be pushed around either.
Right, right. So is there a love-hate relationship there between the two, or is it all love?
There was a serious hate for years, and I don't want to give any spoilers away.
Yes.
Um, yeah, book two was really hard to write. It
Okay.
was probably the most emotional book to write. Oh yeah, like I remember sitting at work and I would tear up.
So
It was
with
hard.
with that, with you kind of explaining that, was book two your most difficult because of that reason, or was there another book in the series that was just as difficult, and why?
Book two was probably the most emotional book to write, and those are the building blocks as to why Mitch is the way he is.
Hmm?
Having said that, in book book number five, Chasing Dragons, Slaying Demons, there's a scene in there that is was uh, horrific to write, very horrific to write. And there was another scene that I didn't want to write, especially as a father, but it had to be written. And I wrote it at night shifts, and I had to take an Ativan after that. I was so worked up. I was on such edge. Um, as writers, there's certain scenes that we dread. We absolutely dread writing, but it has to be written for the series. And it's nothing that Mitch did, but just to clarify that, it's just someone else really crossed the line. They blew up
Absolutely.
the line, yeah.
And you know what the thing is too? It's that I always think about this, when we talk about psychopaths and serial killers and people who do things that are just we can't even imagine. But then I think about this line, that what triggers that person? What happens to
Mm.
them? Why do they become the person that they are based on all of the things that have happened to them in their life? And what kind of separates us from that? What do you think the answer to that
Mm.
is?
Some of it's genetic. Some of it is their what's the word? Their atmosphere, not their atmosphere. Their surroundings. Who like if I grew up and say in a really bad part of town, to survive I have to be a bad guy, or else I'm
Mhm.
going to get beat up all the time.
Oh, that's really interesting. Absolutely. So, what do you hope your readers kind of get out of the series as they start from the beginning, they go all the way through the series? What do you hope that they get out of this? What did you write this series for them for? What was the point of, you know, getting this out into the world? Because you could have just saved it on your laptop and said, you know
Mm.
what, this is for me, this is for my friends. Why go to the point where you have it published in 14 different countries around the world? We've got it in, all of these places. We've got in Barnes and Noble down here in the States. We've got it in Walmart in the US, Chapters, Indigo, Kohl's, all of those places. So why did you decide to kind of open up your readership?
Hopefully, they get the same enjoyment out of it as I do. That great escape from reality. The other side that perhaps they always wondered about how true it was. Yeah, just to quote Lou Reed, take a walk on the wild side.
Absolutely, and you definitely do that. With book
Thank you.
7, what do you think the most difficult part was to, kind of transition Mitch from where he was to where he is now? And I don't wanna give away any spoilers, and I hope you know what I mean by that,
Yeah.
but
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I have to clarify one thing. So the beginning, when Mitch is talking about Richie sing that song, Richie Havens Woodstock did the song Freedom. And it was brilliant. Everybody go to YouTube and watch it, and you know exactly when Mitch is talking about Richie. Just play that note one more time. That's exactly where it is. I think with Mitch, he has learned that I have talked, because I have had a lot of friends of it in and out of prison. Um, if you're going to be a career criminal, be a smart career criminal. Don't be a heat
Yes.
score to the coppers. Don't stick your chest out, think you're the baddest person around, because you're going to draw attention to yourself.
Right.
And just him trying to live that sort of a respectable career criminal life.
Yeah,
And
and you know what? Sorry, go
there's
ahead.
some criminals that you can have respect for. And other ones you just go, you know what, they're just an ass. Like, hopefully life takes
Yeah,
them out.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that is really the whole kind of underlying tone of this series, that is survival of the fittest,
Yes, yes,
right?
absolutely.
And do you
And
think, go ahead.
with Joseph and Donnie and Jerry teaching them along the ways, he's going to do well.
Let's talk about Grandpa Strongbow.
Yes, Grandpa Fred.
Yeah, he's such a fantastic, mystical kind of man. And he
Mhm.
always has these like perfect words of wisdom. And you can tell that Mitch is so swayed by his opinion of him, and he wants to do right by him and all of these things. What was your relationship like with your grandparent, and did that come into play?
So I have completely polar opposites of grandparents. One was a very strict Irish Catholic, Knights of Columbus. Grandpa wore the purple hat. My grandpa Yo, he loved watching wrestling, as he called it. He liked his beers and he loved strippers. So I definitely, pretty sure I take more after him than my namesake side, shall we say. But my grandpa
Okay.
Ford would take us up north and learn to hunt fish. So I also
Okay.
get that from that side of the family. And they
Okay.
come from Ireland, and when they come over here, his whole family, they went to the bottom of a mine. They didn't ask for any handouts or anything like that. They worked hard for them.
Absolutely. And with Mitch and his grandpa, that relationship, can you kind of explain the dynamic? Because there are times where I feel a kind of disappointment from Grandpa Strongbow. Would that be correct?
Well, he's definitely disappointed in some of the ways of Mitch. And in book 2, he talks to Mitch about don't end up like your brother Jake,
Hmm.
because he knows it's not the Sioux way. The Sioux way is to help each other, especially on the reservation. And I get into a lot of that stuff too, where Mitchell does help out a lot of people on there, especially a lot of the poor and suffering.
Hmm. Hmm. So with that whole kind of, he has a lot of male figures around him who kind of make him into the person he is. Who would you say that has kind of had an impact on you as a person and being a writer? Did anybody else in your family ever write or create art or anything like that? Does this come to you just on your own?
Yes, on my own. No
Okay,
one else
so
in my family that I know of
mhm,
were writers or anything like that. But I've been told by my one uncle, is the Irish imagination.
okay,
And
excellent.
in school, I would get in trouble for daydreaming, and now I get paid to daydream.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
So why did you decide to set this in this time period, other than kind of your own exploration of yourself in that kind of era and that age group? And why did you set it in the US?
I love the Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in '61. I remember the whole hippie scene. I'm totally blown away by hippies and just that whole divide between make love, not war, and these poor young kids that were shipped off to Vietnam. And they'd say, like, what did the Vietnamese do to us? Why should I have to go all the way over there? It was such a divided country, and it had to be the States because of the whole storyline. Originally, like Tom tried to talk me into do it Canadian, but it just wouldn't work out at all, unfortunately.
And do you think that's a part of like how rich history the US has? We're pretty young country as Canadians, 150 years, that type of thing. Do you just think it was easier because it would apply to more people as well? In terms of, being your publisher, setting it in the US is one of those things where it has a huge reach, right?
Yes.
So, that said, you decided to do that because it just worked with the story, is what you're saying?
Yes, yes. It's the only thing that came to me that was bang on, spot on. Like I wouldn't change it for anything, especially the musical scene down there in that whole Ashbury region. And as you know, me, music is, like I said, my
Yes.
favorite drug.
So how many bands have you actually seen, Tim?
In my lifetime, at least 1,000. In in
Wow.
in 2019, I corrected.
Pardon?
So
Say that one
it's
more time.
in 2019, I attended 22 separate concerts.
Wow.
Within the 1 week, I saw the Tea Party here in Hamilton. 2 days later, I'm in Toronto seeing Dream Theater. And then 4 days later, I'm in Buffalo seeing Robin Trower.
Wow.
So I get around.
You do.
Yes.
In a couple minutes, we're just going to open up some questions to the audience. Anybody on Facebook Live, if you want to ask anything, just type it into the comments and we'll absolutely ask Tim whatever you want to know. While we wait for that for a couple of minutes, oh, okay, Tim's just going to go use the bathroom for a second, I think. He'll be back in a second. And you can get his book at pandamoniumpublishing.com/shop. And we also have a tab on the menu that says book listings, where you can kind of see all of his books in one place. And it shows book 1 to book 7 so far, which is Freedom, his newest one. And it kind of gives you a little bit of an information on what the theme is. Now, all of Tim's books are rated R for mature themes, definitely, especially this book number 7, violence and language. So that is the disclaimer from the publisher. And I hope that everyone is really enjoying this series that is Mitch Strongbow, because I think that it really speaks to kind of what's going on in the world
I'm back.
today. He's back. Here he is. Awesome.
Thank you. And I'd
Yeah,
like to say thank you very much for taking a chance and signing me. Like,
absolutely.
confidence is either your best friend or your worst enemy. And like I said, I have had no writing experience, and like I was nervous, but
Well,
you get me.
what's that?
You get me, and that's huge. That's absolutely huge as a writer, that I don't have to worry about, oh, geez, now what am I going to say this properly? No, I just bang it off, and here you
Yeah,
go.
this isn't about me, but what I just want to add something to that. When I first met you and Kathy, we were at Supercrawl, and that's a Hamilton Street Festival, and we were there, and she came up to the booth first, and then you came up and we started talking. There's nothing arrogant about you. And I
Thank you.
really felt like, you're this down to earth guy who has a story to tell, and you're so relatable in so many ways. And I feel like it's not about, I love this genre. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the genre that you write in. I love thrillers. I love crime. I love all of these things. But I also feel that, with what we had at the lineup at the time, there was a gap. We kind of needed your story in order to offer to our writers something that was out of the box, something that was a little bit more dangerous, something that was more kind of like, okay, questioning their own morals and asking, what would you do if you were in this situation? So it was a perfect match. And I really feel that you kind of close that gap for us, but you also are so unique in the way that you write that I couldn't say no.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you
we
very
don't
much.
want, and the thing is with Tim's books, you know, we edit them for grammar and things like that, but we really leave your voice alone. We don't change anything. You know, there's certain things that we're going to take out for legal reasons. But I mean, that's my job, right? But the point is
Yes.
that we really want to leave the raw kind of material and who your voice is. How important do you think it is to be authentic to your readers?
I wouldn't write if I couldn't be authentic.
And
There be way.
what makes you authentic in terms of when you're writing these characters? How do you feel that that authenticity comes through?
I make sure it could happen in real life.
Okay.
So for instance, I watched the John Wick movie. I don't know if you saw John Wick. You
Yes.
know what? Who is going to get shot that many times, shoot that many people? It's not going to happen. You know, it's great if you want to lose 2 hours of your life, but I try to write real. Mitch gets hurt. Stuff happens. Like stuff is going to happen, right? It
Yeah.
has to be. It has to be real. You know, like people in his life who we love are going to die.
Um, we've
It's a part of life.
we've got a couple comments here. Christine Craig said the best series I have read. And Michael Giacomelli says, would you ever consider a mini series or bring your work to the screen?
Well, we've talked about Netflix,
Yes.
um, but as a writer, I can't think about that. I don't want to be focused on that huge, massive dream that I'm going to be living now in California or wherever. I just want to write. But yeah. Great question, Mike, and thank you very much, Christine. I appreciate it.
Well, and I think the other thing is too, is that as an author, you know, when we write for ourselves just to kind of get that out of us. And the the biggest tragedy, I think it was Maya Angelou who said, is having an untold story inside of you, you know?
Yes.
And how important was this for you to get out there?
Very, very important. Um, it was also important to tell it that made sense, that was realistic.
Mhm.
And I have so many younger friends say that they love the 60s and they can relate to it. And so many older friends say that it brought back memories of them in the 60s and 70s. And when I hear that stuff, it makes me smile that I was able to open up that memory for them.
Your wife wants to know, can I be in the movie? You know what?
There's no right answer for me other than absolutely, hon.
So we have got a question from Nicole who says, how did you go about picking your main character, Mitch Strongbow?
I like the name Mitch. If I had a son, much to the chagrin of my wife, his name would have been Mitchell. I think it's a very strong masculine sounded name.
It was right for the era.
Yes, yeah, absolutely right for the era. And there is Rachel and there's Mitchell. I've tied that whole on the end of it, and yeah, just Mitch is a badass.
So we've got another question from Al who says, does the time to write a book vary?
Yes,
And how so?
um, I am very nocturnal. I dream the most at nighttime, not only sleeping, but also awake. It just gets me into a very nice flow. Like I said, I just have problems writing during the daytime. It's just, I can't get deep enough. I could probably do like a storyline, like on paper is no problem. But when it comes to expanding it and getting on it, I put on my headphones, the sun goes down, and away I go.
Now
It's almost like, go ahead.
I'm also going to take that question because I think that there could be a different interpretation for it. How long does it take to write a book from start to finish? And does it depend on the
I
book?
yeah, I would say an 80,000 word book is about 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah, about 9 months. And then I'm going to go over it at least 5 or 6 times before I send it away to you.
Right.
It's
Absolutely.
amazing. Like I'm going back and doing book 11, and I see, holy smokes, was I high? No, it was called night shift. It was called 3 o'clock in the morning. When the idea comes to you at 3 o'clock in the morning, it sounds absolutely fabulous. I also compare it to throwing darts. I'm trying to hit it in the bullseye. I am all around that bullseye. The editor, they put it exactly in the bullseye.
Yes, absolutely. It has to be, right? And
Yes.
let's talk about the narrative you use because I find it's really fascinating. Okay. You talk directly to your readers through this character. Okay. So first person narration is I, all of these kind of first person verbs and nouns that we use. With second and third narration, you kind of flip between when you do this, you feel like that's a lot of, throughout your books, but it's also told from the main character's point of view. And what I think that does is that not only does that sit the main character and the reader together and say, come on with me, I have something to show you, but it
Yes.
also gets them completely invested in this character. And that's the key to a successful series. Would you agree?
110%. 110%. They have to like the character, or they have to like something about the character.
And the other thing is too, is that they have to be kind of relatable, not in a way that they've experienced the same things in their lives, but in a way where they could see, yeah, I could see why somebody would do that
Yeah.
or
Or they
have
knew
that
someone like
responsive.
them.
Exactly. And
Yes.
so if we're talking about, how much of Mitch is based on you, and also are there certain things that he kind of makes up for that you wish that you had?
That's a tough question,
That is a tough question.
especially with me not giving away any spoilers.
I know. And I'm going through my
Yes.
head and I'm like, you can't
That's
say that.
probably that's probably the toughest thing. Um, it's funny because when I went back and reread some of the stuff, I got pissed at Mitch. Some of the stuff he does, I get pissed at him. Well, what the hell is wrong with you? But that tells me I hit it out of the park with that scene, right?
Definitely. Absolutely. So Fred has a question. What was an early experience where you learned that language had power? Do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice?
Absolutely. Um, I've always been a talker all throughout school. Um, Words are very powerful, absolutely very powerful, both ways, for love and for hate, unfortunately.
Can I comment on that actually as the publisher? Is
Sure,
that okay? When I
absolutely.
when I was reading this specifically, book 6 and 7, I find that there are certain things said, and we all know this, there are certain things said that kind of can't be taken back. And we know that as humans, like once it's out there, you can never get it back. It's kind of like, when you crumple up a piece of paper and then you apologize for what you said and then you smooth out the piece of paper, it's never going to be, smooth again to the way that it
Yeah.
was. Do you think that Mitch has regrets for some of the things, not that he's done, but some of the things that he's said?
Yes. 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 Absolutely. Especially with him and Rachel, him and his mom, uh, her and his grandfather. Yes. Absolutely.
Definitely.
You
And
only hurt the one. You only hurt the ones you love.
that's right, because they're closest to you and they're the ones that you can
Yeah.
lash out on and they're going to love you at the end of the day and that kind of thing. But I think that, as people, we do struggle with that. And to see Mitch's struggle only makes him more relatable, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, Kathy says, your lovely wife, hi, Kathy. I love how when he sees people that resemble characters. Okay, wait a second. Are you out? Are you out at the mall and like, hey, there's so and so that reminds me of whatever? Are you a people watcher?
Yes. That's how I got my first peace bond put on me.
Okay, so tell us about
No.
that.
No. 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 I can't. Yeah. 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 There's definitely some people that just like they remind me like Lucy is probably the only character that is completely visually made up. All other characters in the series are people that I either know or close resemblance to. And I always hate saying exactly what they look like because I want the readers to tell
Yes.
me what they think they should look like. And it's huge because I have said something to one person that this person reminds me of that, and they're that's not what I got. And I saw that disappointment in their face.
Right.
It's funny how we're all our perception. So that's why I try to bang it out as much as I can, try and get that visual,
Hmm.
my visual, and how
Absolutely.
they interpret it is always up to them, right?
And that's the thing, you know, when people say the world doesn't revolve around me, it actually does because that's your perception of how the world works and how you see the world. So a lot of
Yes,
people could say that Mitch is very kind of self-centered in some points, but
yes,
that's his perception of looking at the world the way that he sees it based on his environment and lived experiences.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, 110%.
Christine says, can't wait to get book 7. The mail takes too long. Yes, it does. Trust me, we have we have supply chain issues. We've got
Yeah,
shipping things around the world. But listen, this book is worth the wait. Let me tell you, it is unbelievable in terms of everything that's in it. And that's all I'm going to say.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Hey, Catherine, Nicole says, are you a character in any of his books? Tim, did you write your wife or daughters into your series?
No, I can't because then I'd be writing for them, not the series, right? And they would
Right.
expect there to be certain expectations, and it's absolutely wrong.
I
There's a
agree.
character in there that's sort of very small part after my dad. Um, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't want to write for the person. And
Yeah,
as
I
far as
agree.
me, the character, a little bit. There's a little bit of me in each one of the characters, I guess, to a certain degree.
What do you think that Mitch's biggest downfall is in terms of personality?
He doesn't know how to handle guilt. He will lash out.
Okay. So we have
Yeah,
kind of
it's
an unregulated response, would you say?
and through a lot of the book, Mitch is also a steroid user. There's nothing worse than a roid rage, which I have had in the past. It's not very pretty at all.
Okay. So, Nicole says, do those people know their characters in your book?
Just Deanna.
Okay, that's the
Yeah,
only
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Just Deanna.
another thing that I noticed about your books, Tim, is that you really encompass a lot of different diverse characters in terms of where they're from and who they are and the accents that are used and parts of the world that they've lived in and their heritages. How important was that to not just have a completely bland type of cast, essentially, that how much did that add by having them so diverse and kind of all over the place from different places that enter Mitch's life? How important was that to the story?
Huge. It has to draw them in. There's a character in there named whose last name is Jansen. He is a loudmouth Texan who's an ex-Marine, and I want the readers to hate him as much as Mitch hates him.
Okay.
Some of the teachers who I've made up were teachers that I've had over the years that just were ips.
Hmm. Do you think that I'm going to ask you this question because I think it's important and I don't want to get controversial, but I think that this kind of needs to be just in terms of literature. How important do you think it is that history is allowed to be told and the way that kind of things took place or the terminology used back in the day? How important is that to the authenticity of the time and of the book?
Absolutely huge. Especially in the 60s, you had such a racial United States. Mitch also faces a lot of racism because he is half German.
Right.
He's half Sioux. So World War II just ended.
Hmm.
Um, Mitch was born in 49, so 5 years, 4 years earlier. So Mitch had also a lot of stuff that went towards him too.
Hmm. And, does that add to his sense of injustice? I feel like there's a
Yes.
theme throughout. Obviously, there is a theme throughout, but what I mean is that there's an underlying theme that you can't quite put your finger on. There's something in him that is fighting for justice, even though he's been on the wrong side of the law.
Yes, you could be on the wrong side of the law and still have your own moral compass, your own values.
With
And
his, go ahead.
and each book is building blocks to how he turned out to be that career criminal. So
Hmm.
like I wanted to do it slowly. I didn't want to all of a sudden go at it full tilt because that would be just no, it's a slow journey. Look, we're doing a marathon. We're not
Hmm.
doing a quick race.
Absolutely. Do you have any ideas for any other upcoming books or series that you'd like to get out there?
Well, I'm currently in book 17 in this series. I figure realistically there could be 22 books, and there's also a possibility of a spin-off, which I will talk to you about. Ladies
Privately.
and gentlemen, Scooby-Doo mysteries all the way around, coming to you from Pandamonium Publishing.
Absolutely. And you can get Tim's books, all of his books, at pandemoniumpublishing.com/shop. And if you go to the menu, you can see our book listing, and all of his books are there with the sequence that they're in and a little bit about them. And like I said, they are rated R, a big capital R in bold for language, violence, and mature themes. So let's just get that straight. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
I don't think I could write PG, you know that?
so no children's
I
book
think
from Tim.
no. Well, even when people ask, what's the name of your first book? And I look around to make sure there's no children to hear Santa dies once again. Because I don't want all these kids just throwing tantrums like,
Yeah.
oh, my name is brought up in therapy because this writer told about killing Santa. Forewarned, no one was harmed at the making of Santa once again. He's still up in the North Pole making gifts for you and for me.
Correct. Absolutely. So do you find that with Mitch and his whole family dynamic, how I want to talk about Carrie Fraser specifically.
Yes. What would you like to know about Carrie Fraser?
Oh,
My
but
wife is downstairs, and that's all I'm saying.
I I just there's a relationship there with her and Mitch, but it's kind of gone. I don't want to spoil this. It's gone awry,
Yes.
and there's so many things that are kind of left up in the air. Do we see that get solved throughout the book towards the end, if you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
It's tight, except for it's not a pretty bow, it's a strong bow.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes. Yeah, yes, it is. I hated watching shows because I'm not a reader. I definitely have ADHD. I found when I was younger, when I was reading, all of a sudden I'm venturing off in something else. And all of a sudden there's a couple words, I'll think of a song lyric, and then I go into my song and I just have a hard time focus. So if I'm watching a TV show, I
Mhm.
hated loose ends.
Yeah, yeah.
Game of Thrones, the final season drove me crazy. There was too many loose ends. There was too many. It was very quickly written. So
I,
yes,
I think that
everything comes full circle.
when you and I talked about that, I made the mistake of saying, I'm sorry that your dragon show ended poorly. Those were because I've never seen a single episode of Game of. I'm gonna get so much hate online for this, no problem. But I
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
that kind of, I just feel like I couldn't get into it. And I watched the first
Yeah.
couple episodes and I was like, I don't know about this. But how important is it for you to have that ending that just fulfills everything?
Huge, huge. I think that you're judged by a huge part of the series will be how it ends. I don't know if I'll be able to please everybody, but
You
I
won't.
think the people that have been following it all along,
Mhm.
um, people that know me, they will know that I didn't sell out and that I did what was best for Mitch and the series.
Absolutely. And you know what? Here's the thing too. If your book is for everyone, it's for no one. We say that in
Yeah.
publishing all the time. You know, your book is for a very specific market of people. And
Yeah.
we've got a question from Fred. If you could meet Mitch and Jake, what would you say to
Where are we going to go party, boys?
them? So they'd be people that you would love to hang out with.
I have hung out with people like that. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, I have. Yeah.
You know, there's such a brotherhood between these men. And what does that mean? What is that dynamic in terms of how the future moves forward?
They would die for each other. The tightest bond is in that brotherhood. Um, and B, I have not watched anything from Sons of Anarchy, so I don't watch any shows that I want all my thoughts all original. I watched the beginning scene of Sons of Anarchy where there was an explosion, and I'm there. You know what? This looks really good. I don't want to follow it. So just a little thing there. I did watch Ozark because Ozark is a great series, and I also didn't know really how to launder money. So watching Ozark has taught me how to launder money.
Okay, so we're gonna cut that part.
Yes.
The disclaimer from the publisher is I know nothing about this.
Yes.
But yeah, Tim, thank you so much for joining me. And I really appreciate your work and your honesty and your authenticity when it comes to writing your books and the whole Mitch Strongbow series. And I'm definitely a fan. I can't wait to see what happens next. And you know, I just really feel like everyone who tuned in today, thank you so much for watching and allowing Tim to allowing us to pick your brain, Tim, first of all, and finding out how you write and the way that you write and your process, but also what the characters mean to you. Other than Mitch, who have you connected with the most and why?
Donnie Tariq. Donnie is Mitch's non-blood brother. Like I never had an older brother, but I had a lot of older friends that took me under their wing. You know, in the criminal world or in the work world, and just I looked up to them, and I think that with Donnie and Mitch, I really wanted to have that. And you know, like if Mitch gets out of line, Donnie will smack him.
Yeah, there's an interesting dynamic. And I feel like with Donnie specifically, he's such a good teacher when it comes to so many lessons,
Yes.
you know? So everybody said this was so interesting. Thank you so much. Awesome. And Tim, thank you so much again for joining us at Pandamonium Publishing House and for being on our team and just writing some amazing books for our readers. We appreciate you.
And thank you for allowing me to be myself when I write, and for giving me the positive influence, because I have doubts too sometimes, and I'll go, Lacey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because it's a road I've never been down before,
You
and
know,
yet
and
you've guided my car. You're my GPS, and
you
I'm
know
a
what's
Ford.
you know what's really funny is that Mike always says to me, "You could do GPS voices. Turn left at the next light, whatever," right? But
Yes.
yeah, so thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I really think that there's so much for you to offer our readers with upcoming books, and you can get all of Tim's books pandemoniumpublishing.com/shop, or go to the book listing and you can see them there down at the end of the page, the rated R section where Tim and I belong with our books that we write, because you know, why not?
Yeah,
So thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you for joining us, Tim. Take
Thank
care,
you,
and we'll
everybody,
see you
for and
soon.
also thank you, everybody, for your support. It's absolutely
Absolutely.
amazing. You keep me going, and like I said, I have great, not even grade 10 English, and people said, you know what, it's really fucking good, man. Keep it going, and that's what
Absolutely.
keeps me going. It's that yeah, even when I have days where I'm doubting myself and just no, I just
Yeah,
that
that's the thing.
positive.
You know what though? That's what makes you a real writer, is that kind of fear that you're an imposter. We all have that. Every single author feels like, you know, is somebody going to read what I want to say? Do they really care about what I have to say? Why should they care? And there are days where we just feel like, what am I doing? And that's how
Yeah,
you know you're an authentic author, is those that
Mhm.
doubt. Because if you had that kind of arrogance or confidence that like what you're doing is exactly right and all of these things, I think the art is lost.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Every time a book comes out, I'm nervous.
Hmm.
I'm absolutely nervous. You know, the old expression, I don't want to jump the shark. That's exactly what I don't want to do. I don't want to jump the shark. I don't
Yeah,
want people to say, well, I know exactly what Mission's going to do next. I know what's
right.
going to take place. I don't want that. I want people to go, holy shit, man. Never even
That's
thought of that.
that's what I thought during your whole book, Tim.
Thank you.
It's like, wow, how am I gonna make this? Uh,
Yes. Yes.
how am I
Yes.
gonna package this so that we don't get sued?
Yes.
Right? But that's my problem, not yours. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate you, Tim. You are always a pleasure. And this is going to be uploaded onto our Facebook page and also to our YouTube and to our blog. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Have a good night, everybody. Please be safe. Keep reading.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.